When you flip a light switch, the room brightens instantly. There is no waiting, no buildup, no sense that energy had to travel far to reach you. It feels as if electricity was sitting somewhere, patiently stored, just waiting for you to call for it. But that comforting idea is wrong. Electricity is not like water in a reservoir or fuel in a tank. It does not sit around in giant warehouses waiting to be used. In reality, the electricity powering your home must be created at the exact moment you need it, not before, not after. Every second, an enormous global machine works silently to keep that balance perfect. And if it ever fails, even briefly, the lights go out. This is what makes electricity uniquely difficult to store, and what makes modern civilization far more fragile than most people realize. Electricity is not a substance, it's a motion. We tend to imagine electricity as a thing, something physical that can be bottled up like oil or stacked like coal. But electricity is not a material. It is the movement of electrons through a system. Trying to store electricity is like trying to store a river's current rather than the water itself. You cannot freeze motion directly. You must first convert it into something else: chemical energy in batteries, gravitational energy in pumped water, mechanical energy in spinning flywheels, and then convert it back later. Every step loses energy, costs money, and introduces technical limits. This is why massive stockpiles of electricity do not exist. The grid was never designed to work that way. Instead, it was built as a real-time machine where production and consumption happen together, locked in a continuous dance. The grid is a live balancing act. At every moment, electricity demand and electricity supply must match almost perfectly. If homes, offices, factories, and data centers are using 400 gigawatts, power plants must be producing 400 gigawatts at that exact second. Not 390, not 410. Even small mismatches can destabilize the system. This is because the power grid behaves like a massive synchronized machine. Thousands of generators across continents are electrically linked, spinning together in precise rhythm. That rhythm is called frequency. 50 hertz in much of the world, 60 hertz in North America. It is the pulse of civilization. If demand suddenly rises, millions of air conditioners switching on during a heat wave, generators slow down slightly. The frequency begins to fall. If supply suddenly exceeds demand, generators speed up and frequency rises. These shifts may seem tiny, but sensitive equipment notices immediately. If frequency drifts too far, protective systems begin shutting down parts of the grid automatically to prevent physical damage. This is how cascading blackouts start, not from a lack of fuel, but from a loss of balance. Power plants don't push, they respond. Contrary to popular belief, power plants do not simply dump electricity into the grid non-stop. They continuously adjust their output based on what the grid is doing. Every second, sensors across the network measure frequency, voltage, and power flows. These signals tell generators whether the system is straining or relaxing. Turbines respond by opening or closing valves, adjusting steam flow, water flow, or fuel injection to increase or decrease output. This is not occasional fine-tuning. It is non-stop correction. The grid is not controlled once per day or once per hour. It is controlled every second. Control rooms quietly run the modern world. Hidden in nondescript buildings are grid control centers, the nerve centers of national power systems. Walls of screens show live maps of transmission lines, power plant outputs, regional demand, and reserve capacity. Operators watch for small deviations long before the public notices anything. If a power plant trips offline in one city, they reroute electricity from other regions instantly. If demand spikes unexpectedly, they dispatch fast-responding generators within seconds. They do not guess. They calculate continuously. This human-machine partnership is what keeps modern life running invisibly in the background. Why we can't just build giant batteries. If electricity must be balanced in real time, why not solve the problem with massive storage? The answer is scale. Modern societies consume staggering amounts of energy. A single large city can use several gigawatts continuously. A country can consume hundreds of gigawatts. To store even a few hours of national electricity use would require battery systems larger than any industrial project ever built. Lithium-ion batteries, despite their success in phones and electric cars, store tiny amounts of energy compared to what power grids require. They are excellent for smoothing short fluctuations, seconds or minutes, but wildly expensive for multi-day backup at national scale. Even the world's largest battery installations can power a major city for minutes, not weeks. Other storage methods exist: pumped hydro, compressed air, hydrogen. But each has limitations in geography, efficiency, and cost. Storage helps stabilize the grid, but it cannot replace real-time balancing. Why blackouts are usually not about shortages. When people imagine blackouts, they picture empty power plants or countries running out of electricity. In reality, blackouts usually happen because the system loses synchronization. A fallen transmission line, a failing substation, or a sudden generator shutdown can throw regional supply and demand out of alignment. Protective systems trip to prevent damage. Power plants disconnect themselves. Sections of the grid isolate. The collapse spreads not because electricity is gone, but because the grid can no longer maintain its rhythm. It is a stability failure, not a fuel failure. Interconnected grids create shared survival. No modern city powers itself alone. National grids are stitched together into continental networks. Electricity constantly crosses borders. Your light may stay on because a power plant hundreds of miles away increased output a moment ago. A city in another region may absorb a surge that would otherwise overload your local network. This interdependence makes the grid stronger and more vulnerable. Failures can be absorbed by neighbors, but major disturbances can propagate across borders, as history has shown in large international blackouts. Electricity is a shared trust system operating at the speed of physics. Renewable energy makes balance even harder. Wind and solar add another layer of complexity. Unlike gas or coal plants, they cannot be commanded to produce power on demand. Clouds and calm air do not follow grid schedules. This means grid operators must constantly compensate for natural fluctuations. When wind suddenly drops, backup generators must rise instantly. When solar surges at noon, other plants must reduce output just as quickly. Storage helps smooth these swings, but it does not eliminate the need for real-time balancing. Ironically, the cleaner our energy system becomes, the more sophisticated its balancing act must be. Civilization runs on invisible precision. The modern world feels solid and permanent. Cities glow through the night. Data centers hum without pause. Hospitals rely on uninterrupted power. Yet all of it depends on a system that must succeed every second. Not once per hour. Not once per day. Every second. This is what makes electricity fundamentally different from all other resources. We do not store it and use it later. We create it continuously, perfectly synchronized with human behavior across entire continents. It is the largest machine humanity has ever built, and almost no one ever sees it. The fragile miracle behind the switch. The instant your room lights up, thousands of generators, sensors, control rooms, and transmission lines have already performed a silent negotiation on your behalf. No announcement, no delay, just balance. And that is why electricity cannot be easily stored. Because it is not a thing we keep. It is a motion we must sustain. Modern life exists not because we have electricity, but because we never stop making it. Every second, quietly, relentlessly. Behind every light you turn on is a system so precise it must succeed every second of every day, and most of us never even think about it. Once you realize how fragile and extraordinary this invisible machine really is, you start seeing the modern world very differently. If this changed the way you look at electricity and the hidden systems around you, make sure to like and subscribe, because we uncover the quiet forces shaping your life every day.